we have one last thing that we need to add to this application, and it's to do with the second button on the web page. So if you go into the design model, remember we've installed an event handler for this button, but we haven't yet installed an event handler for this button, visited last year. So let's do that now. Select visited last year on the page and click the event icon here. And for the click event, now if you select from the drop-down list, you can choose the existing event handler method, the_button_click. Okay, and then double click the event name. So here is the event handler. Let's just make this a bit bigger so we can see what's going on. So this event handler method, the_button_click, is now actually handling the click event for two different buttons. So what we'd really like to do is to output a differently formatted message depending on whether we're displaying the countries visited by the user this year or last year. Now to do that, we need to somehow differentiate between the two buttons. Okay. The way you do that is to look at the sender parameter. The sender parameter indicates which control, in our example a button, which control generated the event. It's always represented as type object, so probably the first thing you want to do in the code is to convert that into a button variable. So let's declare a button variable, and I've called it sender button, and we'll assign it the sender parameter converted into a button data type. Okay, so this variable now identifies which particular button generated the event, and we can write an if statement to generate a string to say either this year or last year, depending on which button it was. So let's declare ourselves a helper variable called year message. And let's write ourselves an if statement to test which button the user clicked. Now, at this moment, we have to ask ourselves which property on the sender button object do we test. One possibility is to test the text attribute. And I could do that. I could say, take the button that was clicked and have a look at its text property. And now let's just remind myself what the text properties were. The first text property was visited this year. So I could test to see if the text property is visited this year. And if it is, then I can assign the year message to be some text such as this year. Alternatively, if the sender button text is visited last year, then I can set the year message to be something like last year. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll change the result label so that it says these are the countries visited by the person's name. I'm just going to get rid of this breakpoint so we can actually see what we're doing a bit more clearly here. Countries visited by person's name, and then I'll add another set of curly brackets, and that set of curly brackets will be filled in by the value of our helper variable, year message.